This is not by chance that I begin my picturesque guide to Ukraine from the Luhansk region, because this is my homeland and this is return to the source. The Picturesque Guide of Ukraine is an ongoing art project by Ukrainian artist Marina Stognieva, launched in May 2024 in the city of Kyiv. The project combines painting, cultural memory, and personal experience of travel around Ukraine. The Picturesque Guide was created as an opportunity to learn about and travel through all regions of Ukraine through artistic images. Each region in the project represented by a series of paintings that convey its character, mood, and inner rhythm. The focus is not only geography but also on the sense of place, its color, light, and space. The project draws on folklore, historical lives, myths, and everyday culture of each region. The paintings in the guide do not illustrate facts, but created images through which a deeper understanding of Ukrainian land is formed. The Picturesque Guide of Ukraine shows the country as a holistic cultural space with a polyphony of regions. The project combines documentary and historic interpretation while maintaining the viewer's freedom of perception. Is the image of popularizing Ukrainian culture in a contemporary artistic context. The Picturesque Guide to Ukraine is an open and ongoing project constantly expanding within new regions and works. Luhansk Oblast is a region that has never been a periphery. It has always been a crossroads of paths, cultures, languages, characters, empires, ideas, and ways of life. Currently, the Picturesque Guide to Ukraine in the Luhansk region section already includes paintings of the artist's childhood memories of the village of Podgorivka, lunch in her grandmother's garden, landscapes of Aidar River, landscapes of the city of Lugansk, where the artist spent her student years, rural landscapes, painted grandfather apiary, memories of Christmas celebration, and children's entertainment, and Maturin Street 32. This is a land that was formed not around a single center, but a system of cities connected by rivers, trade, production, and human mobility. Long before the emergence of modern cities, these lands were inhabited by Scythians, Sarmatians, Alans, and later by Slavic tribes. Steppe trade corridors passed through Lugansk Oblast, along which caravans moved between the Black Sea, the Caucasus, and the North. These were a space where people did not build stone capitals, but owned the land of movement. Here they have always known how to live with risk, openness, and freedom. That is why Kazakh Slobodas later appeared here. Luhansk Oblast is part of Sloboda Ukraine, and this is fundamentally important. Slobodas are not just settlements. These are places of free people who received land on the condition of developing and protecting it. This is how a special type of character is formed: independent, hardy, practical. Starobylska, my little homeland, is one of the key cities of this region. Founded in 686 as a settlement of the Aidar River, it immediately became a trade and administrative center. Aidar, a tributary of the Seversky Donets, was an important waterway. The city was formed as a crossroads of roads, land, and water. Starobylska wasn't a random city. It quickly became a center of crafts, trade, education, and spiritual life. One of the main architectural and spiritual dominants of the city was a Starobirsky Holy Trinity Monastery. The monastery was not only a religious center but also fortified complex. There are legends about underground passages and tunnels under the monastery, which supposedly led to the river and were used for escapes, storage of valuables, or secret passages. Similar dungeons are characteristic of many monasteries of the 17th and 18th centuries, and Starobinsk was no exception. The city had a reputation for being quiet but cunning. That is why there is a persistent cultural version that Starobinsk became the prototype of the city of Stargorod from Ilf and Petrov's novels about Ostap Bender. Ilf and Petrov traveled through Ukraine, and Starobinsk made a strong impression on them. A city of merchants, petty officials, and ironic province where everything is not as simple as it seems. This image, half serious, half grotesque, has firmly entrenched itself and cultural memory of the city. The name of Nestor Makhno is directly associated not only with Ghulaypole, but also with the Luhansk region as whole. Historical background: Nestor Makhno, years of life: 1888-1934, Ukrainian revolutionary, anarchist and military figure of period 1970-1921. Born in the village of Ghulaypole in southern Ukraine, he was one of leaders of peasant anarchist movements and the founder of Revolutionary Instrument Army of Ukraine, known as the Makhnovts. There are legends in the region about his comrades, about the movements of detachments, about the shelter and support of the local population. There are also folk tales about Father Makhno as a symbol of a free step, justice, an image that is much broader than a specific biography. For Lugansk Oblast, Makhno is not textbook character, but a myth of freedom born of space. The regional center of the region is Luhansk. The city was founded in 1795 as a Luhansk foundry by order of Catherine II. The reason is simple: the Luhan River, the proximity of coal and convent logistics. Lugansk immediately formed as industrial city, but with strong engineer and educational tradition. It was here that technical schools, factory schools, engineering dynasties appeared. Luhansk was a city of work and intelligence, not just factories. The architecture of Lugansk combined classicism, constructivism, and Stalin's empire. The city center had a well-thought-out structure: wide streets, theater, libraries. Luhansk Oblast is a region of satellite cities, each of which plays its own role. Lysychansk is one of the oldest industrial cities associated with first coal mines. Severodonetsk is a city of chemical industry, science, and modern planning. Alchevsk is a metallurgical center formed around a plant. Rovenki, Krasnodon, Sorokin, Anthracite are many cities with their historic and tragic history. These cities were connected by a single economic system, but each had its own character. Luhansk Oblast stands on rivers: Siversky Donets, Aidar, Luhan, Derkul. Rivers here are not scenery, they are logistics, water, life, memory. Siversky Donets is one of the main rivers of eastern Ukraine, which shaped the entire region. Luhansk Oblast gave Ukraine engineers, scientists, writers, artists, and athletes. This is a region of people of action. Here they valued not loudness but results, not form but content. The culture of Luhansk Oblast is a culture of work, endurance, and humor. That is why a special, ironic view of life was born here. Luhansk region has never been homogeneous, and this is precisely its strength. This region was formed as mosaic. Each city, each settlement had its own function, but altogether they formed a single living organism. There was no main and secondary here. Everything worked in tandem. Industry required not only workers but also heads. Therefore, colleges, gymnasium, and technical schools were actively opened here. Luhansk became a center of engineering education. Starobinsk was center of humanitarian and spiritual education. It was in Starobinsk that educational institution operated, where the local intelligentsia was formed teachers, priests, doctors, and officials of new type. People who knew how to think systematically. It's important to understand this. Luhansk is not only a region of production, this is a region of intelligent work. The Holy Trinity Monastery in Starobilsk was not just a place of prayer, it was cultural and social center. The monastery had a library, archives, workshops. It was here that manuscripts, church books, and chronicles were stored. Texts were copied here and literacy was taught. Legends about underground passages under the monastery have been alive in the city for decades. Old residents said that the passages could stretch under the Idar River, connecting the monastery with other parts of the city. Whether all these passages really existed is a question for historians. But more importantly, the city lived with sense of depth beneath it, with sense that there is always something hidden beneath the visible. This is a very Starobinsk trait. Luhansk Oblast is a region that grew up at the intersection of trade routes from north to south, from east to west. The following routes run through the region: grain routes, salt routes, cattle routes, later railway lines. It was the railway that became the second birth of the region. The cities were connected even more closely. Starobinsk, Luhansk, Lysychansk, Debaltseve are all roads of the single transport system, and people here use it to movement, to arrivals and departures, to openness. Lysychansk is one of the key cities of the region. It was here the coal mining began in the 18th century. The city stands on the Seversky Donets River. It has a complex relief, hill terraces, and this has greatly influenced its character. Lysychansk is a city of strong people, miners, engineers, chemists. A special culture is being formed here: respect for work, charity, mutual support. Severodonetsk is a relatively young city. It was built in the 20th century as a city of science and chemical industry. This is a city with a different architecture, straight lines, space, wide avenues. Severodonetsk is an example of how the Luhansk region knew how to adapt to new eras. It was modern, technological, and future-oriented. Alchevsk grew up around a metallurgical plant. This is a city of heavy industry, but also a large human community. Work dynasties were formed here. Here, people knew their work was part of a great process. Alchevsk is about discipline and endurance, Krasnodon, Sorokine, and memory. Krasnodon is a city associated with legend of young guard, this separated page in the history of this region. Regardless of interpretation, this city has always been a symbol of youth, idealism, and tragedy, and it has become part of the general cultural memory of Luhansk Oblast. Luhansk Oblast does not have excessive decorativeness. Its architecture is functional. But it's precisely in this simplicity that there is style, classicist buildings of Lugansk, merchant houses of Starobilsk, constructivism of industrial cities, theaters, palaces of culture, libraries. All this created a holistic visual landscape. Luhansk Oblast gave Ukraine and the world many outstanding people, engineers, artists, scientists. This is a region where talent was often practical. They didn't like loud statements here, they loved business here. The people of this region are direct, they don't embellish their language, they speak to the point. But behind this directness lies great depth. They know how to be friends, they know how to work together, they know how to live in difficult conditions. The life of Luhansk region was closely connected with fairs. Fairs were not just trade, they were meetings of words. People from surrounding villages, towns, and settlements gathered here. Grain, livestock, fabrics, tools, and handcrafts were sold, but along with goods and news, rumors, stories, and legends were sold. Starobilsk fairs were known far beyond the region. It was here that one could see how diverse Luhansk region was. The Ukrainian language sounded next to Russian, Greek, Jewish, and Armenian. The region was multinational, but not disunited. It was a land of coexistence, life, and everyday life. There was no excess in the houses of Lugansk region. Here useful things were valued. The furniture was durable, the dishes were simple but reliable, clothing was practical. But at the same time, people loved beauty in details, embroidered towels, painted chests, neatly whitewashed houses. The walls spoke of the characters of the owners, not about wealth, but about order. Holidays in Luhansk Oblast were loud, but not theatrical. Christmas with carols, but without ostentation. Easter with a basket prepared with love, not for demonstration. Weddings long with songs, dances, jokes. The culture of humor was special. Luhansk humor, dry, ironic, sometimes sharp. It was from such humor that the image of Ostap Bender was easily born. A man who sees the world without illusion, but with imagination. This humor is a way of survival in the space where life was not always easy. Each city in Luhansk had its own legends. In Starobilsk, they told stories about merchants who hid gold in their basements, about monks who disappeared into dungeons, about secret rooms in old houses. In Luhansk, they told stories about factory dynasties, where the craft was passed down from generation to generation, about engineers who used their machines like living beings. In Lysychansk, they told stories about miners who felt the earth. They said the real miner knows where the rock speaks. Luhansk was never one-dimensional in the face. There were Orthodox churches, old believer communities, Catholic churches, and synagogues. This created a culture of tolerance. People could be different, but they lived side by side. The Holy Trinity Monastery in Serbia was one of the spiritual centers, but not the only one. Faith here was not demonstrative but internal. The art of Luhansk has always been applied, even painting was often connected with reality, with the land, with the labor. Artists didn't paint mythical landscapes, but what they saw: river steps, factories, city streets. And it was from this that the truth of the image emerged. Aidar, Siversky Donets, Luhan, these rivers shaped the rhythm of life. They were a place of the rest, fish, and meetings. For Starobirsk, Aidar is the almost family space, a river that has seen generations. It is important to understand the Luhansk region is not a set of cities. This is a single organism that breathes together. People easily moved from city to city. They worked in the factories, studied, and started family. There was no rigid hierarchy. Everyone knew their place, and this gave a sense of stability. Writers, scientists, and artists who shaped the culture of Ukraine came from Luhansk Oblast. This is a region that often remained in the shadows but constantly worked for the country. Luhansk Oblast and Ukrainian identity. The Ukrainian of Luhansk Oblast is not decorative, it's deep, is in the way of thinker and character in language. Luhansk region gave Ukraine the poet Mykola Chernявsky, one of the representatives of Ukrainian modernism, a man of subtle words who combined step, breadth with intellectual depth. His poetry is inner silence and movement at the same time. This is again very Lugansk rhythm. Vasyl Goloborodyko, one of the most original Ukrainian poets of the 20th century, also comes from Luhansk Oblast. His poetry is a combination of folklore depth, mythologic thinkings, and modern language. His images are simple and cosmic at the same time. And this again about the step, when you look far away but you see the detail. In science, Luhansk Oblast gave Ukraine a whole galaxy of engineers, physicists, chemists, and doctors. Here names were not always remembered, but the result was remembered. Bridges, factories, technologies, developments. This is a region where talent was often not advertised, it was used. In art, Luhansk always gave artists for whom space and people were more important than decorativeness. Here they painted the truth of the environment, and it's from this soil that my picturesque guide grows. In literature and culture, Luhansk often appeared as a city of region without decoration, and this is not flaw in the style. This is a very special type of irony that we see in 20th century prose arises. This is where the soil for image of city similar to Stargorod from the novels of Ilf and Petrov appears. Starobirsk, with its merchants, official monastery fairs, quiet intrigues, and calm cunning, fits perfectly into this cultural matrix. A city where everyone knows everything, but no one in a hurry to speak. Luhansk does not like haste and judgments at all. Here first they look, then they think, and only they speak. That is why this region has often been read incorrectly. They have tried to simplify it, reduce it to the function. But Luhansk region is not a function, it is experience. And that is why I'm starting my picturesque guide to Ukraine with the Luhansk region. Because here Ukraine is not ostentatious, it is real. Here Ukrainian identity does not scream, it works, it sings, it remembers. Luhansk regions in Ukraine of the steppe, rivers, factories, cities, monasteries, fairs, libraries, schools, Ukraine of people who know how to live in complexity. And for me, this region is not topic, it is a starting point. This is where my view of Ukraine begins, not from the ideal, but from reality. And then, step by step, brush by brush, I will discover other regions, but this one, Luhansk, will always remain the first, because it was here that I learned to see not the surface, but the depths.